name's Dave, and in this video we're going to continue our discussion about conditional tests. And this time I'm going to introduce you to logical operators. So I have a console app. I've named mine Conditional Test 2. You can name yours whatever you like. And it's just console app, so you just double click on the program.cs and you'll see this method, static void main. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Just make sure you're in between the curly brackets. Just type your code in between the curly brackets. And so we're going to talk about logical operators. And by the way, you can zoom in. You can hold down the control button and zoom in with your scroll on the mouse. I've got control button held down, the control button held down, and I'm just scrolling with the mouse right now. Scrolling with the mouse. So I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so let's talk about the logical operators. We have the AND logical operators, two ampersands. Ampersand signs. Alright, so two ampersands and two pipes or vertical lines, and the pipe is above the enter key on the keyboard, and you'll see the vertical line there. You have to hold shift down, so just shift and the button above the enter key, that's the pipe or vertical line. And the not operator is exclamation mark, right? Exclamation mark just means not, negatory, inverts, it's a negation, it flips, right? So that's the not operator. And you see I have a Boolean variable. I've declared it as a Boolean, and I went ahead and assigned it false, even though this actually isn't necessary because that's the default is false. But I went ahead and assigned it just for the sake of being explicit. I assigned it the value of false, so initially it's going to have that value of false. Okay, so let's look at this line. This is my I have two conditional tests basically. We can call these conditional tests, I guess. But all conditional tests results in either true or false. So it's going to result in either true or false. So we can just use true or false, right? So if I have a conditional test, like say 5 is less than 10, that's a conditional test. This is going to result in either true or false. So conditional test results in either true or false, right? That's what it results in. So we could just use true or false, right? And sometimes you do. Sometimes you have like a method. You call a method. We don't know what a method is, but we're going to talk about methods in another video. But sometimes you'll call a method, and that method will return either true or false, right? And we can compare that with other things, other conditional tests. So we could just use the true or false, right? Which is what we're doing here. So we're comparing these two. True. What the two ampersands say, the AND operator is saying is check to see if this is true and that is true, right? So we need to see if this is true and that's true. Both of these have to be true. Both of them have to be true. If one of them's false, then the whole condition is false, right? The whole condition is false. Both of these have to be true. Both of these have to be true, right, in order for this condition so the whole condition to be true. So let's look at the next one, true, false. That's going to be true in this case because this condition is obviously true. True is true and true is true, right? So this is going to hold a value of true. This is going to drop the true into, let's see, try this again. Alright, so it's going to drop true into this box, this variable, right? Alright, so this has the value of true, this true, false, and it's going to compare with this false. So it's saying this has to be true and that has to be true. Both of these have to be true. This is true, but this is false. So therefore the whole condition is false, right? The whole thing is false. Okay, so let's look at this in the debugger. I'm going to go ahead and set a breaking point like we've been doing. Just click to the left here, or you can select the line and press F9. Alright, so I'm going to click on the green button. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Alright, so I see my variables in the locals window. And we're going to step through, and we can see true, false. Variable has a value of false. And stepped over line 19. This is true, because true is true, and true is true, right? So that resulted in true. The whole thing resulted in true. Assigned true to this variable, this box. So now true has a true, false. The variable has a value of true. So now it's checking to see, is this true, and is this true? Is this true and Control Z, and is this true, right? So both of these have to be true. This is true, this is false. But because one of them is not true, one of them is false, therefore the whole thing, the whole condition is now false, right? So let's look at that. And we see that it's indeed false, right? You can also hover over the operator, and it's giving us a false. So the whole thing resulted in false because just one of those was false, right? So let's look at this, the logical OR operator, and now it's checking to see if just one of these is true. Now it's saying if this is true, or if this is true. Right? Just one of those have to be true. And this is indeed true. True is true. So the whole condition, the whole shebang, the whole thing here is now true. The whole thing is true, right? Right. So it checks to see if one of these is true. If just one of them is true, then the whole thing is true. Let's see, is this true, or if this is true, right? And since one of those was true, then the whole thing is true. So let's step over the next one. So here, true, and of course both of these are true, so it results in true. So if one of them are true, or both of them, one or both is true, then the whole thing is true. But with the logical and, both have to be true, right? So here, let's keep stepping. That resulted in true. And we got two conditions, and this is the same condition as this one. With this one, I just put parentheses around just to make it clear, just to make the code clear. It's probably a good idea in this case. So just to kind of clarify what's going on there. Okay, so the next one, we have another condition, and this resulted in false. And this resulted in true, so therefore the whole thing is true, right? Because either the or, just one of them have to be true. If just one of them are true, both or just one, then the whole condition is true, right? The whole thing is true. Since this is true, it assigns true here, right? So let's keep stepping here. I got two variables. They're both of double type, right? Double is a real number with the decimal value. And num1 is just what I name my variable. You can name yours whatever you like. And I just entered an arbitrary decimal number here. And same thing here. And now I'm comparing. I'm using a conditional test here. Is num1, is the number that's in this box, this variable, less than the number that's in this box, right? Or this variable. And let's see if that resulted in true. But we're using the logical and, so both of these have to be true. Both of these have to be true. And this is true, so both of these have resulted in true, so therefore it assigned true to the variable, right? So let's keep stepping. And I'm going to auto hide. just click on the push pin to auto-hide, give us more room. Okay, so, and this resulted in true because one of these, this was false, but this was true. It's true that num1 does not equal 2. That's true, right? It's true that these two don't equal, so therefore it resulted in true. Only one of these have to be true because I'm using the logical OR operator, right? And you could also use multiple conditional tests, right? Here I have 1, 2, 3 conditional tests, and I'm combining them with the logical AND, right? And same thing here with the logical OR. So this is saying this has to be true, and this has to be true, and this has to be true, right? So all three of these have to be true. If all three of these result in true, then the whole thing is true. If just one of these returns false, results in false, then the whole thing is false, right? So since all three of these, one of them is false, so that kills it right there. So this is false, so that ends it. It short circuits right here, because there's no point in looking at these, right? This one's false, so now the whole condition is false, right? The whole thing is false, and it assigned false to this variable. It has true value, true now because of this one. This condition is true, so it assigned true here. Okay, so this is false, but this is true. So the logical OR says just one has to be true. So this is false, but this is true. So just since one of them is true, now the whole condition is true, and it is assigned true to this variable, this box, right? So, and you could also combine the logical OR with the logical AND, right? So I have, this is saying, if this is true, or if this is true, right? And note the parentheses to kind of clarify. I don't think it's necessary here, but it's a good idea to make it clear, make your code clear. So this is saying this is true, if this has to be true, and this has to be true. It's checking to see if this is true and this is true, right? So which is not. This is false. This is true, but this is false. So now the whole thing is false. So now this whole condition is false. So, because of that, because we're using the logical AND, both of these have to be false. So now this is false, and this is false. So now the whole thing results in false, right? Because neither one of these is true. So, and you can see it resulted in false. Okay, so, and if that's not crystal clear, it may, it's one of those things that you may have to play around with for it to sink in. So I recommend, typing this stuff in, watching the values in the locals window. Use different values than what I've used. Make sure you're checking your values of the variables and just hover over to see. So just play around with it. That's the best way for this to really sink in. Okay, so the not operator just flips. This condition is true. It's true that 5 is greater than 2, but because of the not operator, it's flipped it to false, right? And note the parentheses. You got to have the parentheses here before if you use the not operator or something like that. This is true, right? It's just a literal true. I just typed in true. But now if we look in the box, hey, actually I forgot the exclamation mark. So, my bad. Have to have the exclamation mark. So that was my intention there, to put the exclamation. So I recommend playing around with that. Just put an exclamation mark in front of true or false, and it'll flip the value, right? So let's just pretend like I did that. So then we'll pretend like this is false, right? So the exclamation mark just flips. If this is true, it's just going to flip it to false, and vice versa, right? So let's keep on keeping on. All right, so okay, so I've fixed a couple of my oversights. So let's try this again. So now I have the exclamation mark in front of the true, and now we hover over the variable true false, and we can see that it's just flipped that true to false, right? And let's keep going. And here it's if this is true or if this is true. And note the exclamation mark here is going to flip whatever this results in, and this resulted in false, so it's actually going to flip it to true, right, because of the exclamation mark. And again, note the parentheses. So let's take a look at short circuit operation. You can actually use the single ampersand and pipe, but I don't recommend that because the two ampersands does what's called a short circuit operation. So let's take, for example, the logical AND. If this results in false, then there's no point in it checking this one, right? Because both of them have to be true. In order for the whole thing to be true, both have to be true. So if this one's false, then automatically off the rip, then the whole thing is false, right? So there's no point in checking this. So it short circuits, it stops, right? It checks this, whether it's false. Okay, so the whole thing's false. So it just kills the whole thing, right? It stops right there. That's called short circuit operation. In this scenario, it doesn't really matter. But what if you're calling a method, and the method has a lot of operation, and the method takes some time to run? In that case, this could save you some time. So it's something to just be aware of. And let's keep stepping. And the same thing here with the OR. So this one's true, and this is true. So if just one of them have to be true, then if the first one's true, then it's going to short circuit, right? There's no point in checking. If this one's true, then there's no point in checking this one because the whole thing's already true. Only one of these have to be true, right? Because we're using the logical OR, right? And here's a couple of examples of the single. I don't recommend using these. We may have. They're also bitwise operators, and don't worry about what bitwise is right now. So I recommend using the two. Make sure you use two ampersands and two pipes. And this is the logical and the logical OR operator. Okay, so that concludes our discussion on conditional tests. Later we'll see the implications, how to use conditional tests. So that's it for this video, and I'll see